Hey guys, I was just sitting out here with the birds and I was thinking about the difference between love and trauma, and I wanted to come and share some of my thoughts with you. So it is my hope that I'll get to meet you in the comments. But let me tell you something that a lot of people don't really want to hear. And some of you think that you are in love, but you are in trauma. Some of you think that you are in loyal, but you are afraid. And some of you think that you're strong, but you're just performing strength while your soul is starving. You know, sometimes we we think that we really tried, but we're really emotionally unwell, and we're mentally overloaded, we're spiritually disconnected, and we're so used to survival that peace now feels unfamiliar. And all of that is just like complete taboo. And the taboo that many people are not just dealing with stress, they're dealing with anxiety, they're dealing with depression, they're dealing with burnout, they're dealing with complex trauma. They're even dealing with like disassociation. We've got people out here just people pleasing, you know, they're on codependency with other people, and there's so much emotional numbness when it comes to that. Our nervous system is just dysregulated, and because no one taught anybody how to name it, we've called it love. We've called it loyalty. We've called it being a good woman, being strong. We've called it purpose. But the truth is, sometimes what you're calling love is actually pain with a familiar face. And it's quite confronting when you come into that. And I'm not here to diagnose you, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just here to help you tell the truth. And if you're in danger, if you're in abuse, if you're having thoughts of harming yourself and you're in that mental crisis, please seek licensed professional support immediately. You know, truth includes wisdom, and it includes support, and it includes help as well. All right. But yeah, let's go a little bit deeper, because I know what it feels like to stay too long. I know what it is to keep explaining away what my spirit already knew, and I know what it is like to sit in a toxic relationship and call it commitment. I know what it is to burn out, and I know what it's like to call work ambition. I know what it's like to carry family conditioning and just calling it normal. And I know what real betrayal feels like. I know what it is to ignore your intuition, because the truth was too expensive at the time. I know what it's like to realize later, only later, that I was unwell and did not have the language for it. And that's why this matters, because if you cannot name a thing, you cannot confront it. And if you cannot confront it, you'll keep creating it. So let's just start here. This is not always love. Sometimes it's just trauma. And trauma is not the only terrible thing that happened. As Dr. Gabor Mate teaches, trauma is also what happens inside of us as a result of what happened. Like, it is the wound. It is the adaptation. It is the pattern that your body learned in order to survive. So that means we can leave one toxic relationship and still carry the chemistry of it in our nervous system. You can leave one manipulative boss and then be drawn to workplaces that literally run on fear. You can leave one group of fake friends and still feel more comfortable around people who keep you anxious than people who actually keep you safe. And you can grow older and still be living by the emotional laws of the house that no longer exists. And that's why chaos can feel like chemistry. That's why inconsistency can feel like it's exciting. And that's why a person who keeps you guessing will always feel magnetic. And that's why peace can feel boring. When your body has been trained to expect the danger, and people do not talk about it enough. They tell you just to love yourself. They tell you to raise your standards. They tell you to choose better. But if your body thinks chaos is home, your choices will keep bowing to the conditioning until you heal what your mind can not override alone. And that is not weakness, that is just wiring. There's a doctor named Bessel van der Kolk, I think that's how you say his name, and he said the body keeps the score. And that is so true. Your body remembers. Your mouth is still trying to minimize. Your body remembers the fear. Your body remembers the rejection. Your body remembers unpredictability. And it remembers what it looks like to stay loved, what it looks like to be chosen, what it looks like to feel and stay safe. Your body remembers what it feels like to stay included. So when you are in relationships with lovers, with friends, or even work systems that make you shrink, that make you feel panic, that make you over-explain, that make you abandon yourself or you numb out, or even make you betray yourself, don't just ask, why am I here? Ask, what does this feel familiar to? Because that question will tell you more truth than your pride ever will. Now let's talk about performance, because a lot of you out there, you're exhausted, not only because life is hard, but because you are performing a version of yourself that was built for survival. And you're performing at being okay. You're performing at being like low maintenance. You're performing at being the strong one, the one that's been agreeable. You are performing at being productive. You're performing at being easy to love, and you're performing to be unbothered. The performance is killing your spirit. And this is where emotional illness gets hidden in plain sight. People think emotional illness always looks dramatic. Nope. Sometimes emotional illness looks like high functioning. Sometimes it looks absolutely polished. Sometimes it looks like a woman who gets everything done and has no idea how to rest without guilt. Sometimes it looks like an employee who is praised for reliability when their nervous system is actually collapsing. And sometimes it looks like a friend who is always there for everyone else and secretly feels empty. Sometimes it looks like a daughter who learned that love meant obedience, or a partner who keeps abandoning their own needs so nobody leaves. That's emotional sickness. Not because you're broken, but you've been taught to betray yourself so consistently that self-abandonment now feels normal. But burnout is real. Anxiety is real. Depression is real. Disassociation is real. People-pleasing is not a cute personality trait. It's often a trauma response. It is the body saying, if I keep everyone happy, maybe I will stay safe. If I stay useful, maybe I will be loved. If I don't need much, I will not be rejected. But that strategy creates adults who do not know that they are who they are in that moment, and that they're performing, and that we end up in a place and wonder why we feel so exhausted. You're exhausted because your false self is expensive. A mask costs energy. Suppression costs energy. Hypervigilance, that costs energy. And pretending to notice what hurts Like, all of that costs you energy. Carrying grief, trying to earn love that should come with peace, all of it costs energy. That's why people often, they feel scared to say things out loud. You know, some of you are not only mentally tired and emotionally wounded, some of you are spiritually sick. And I want to be clear, when I say spiritually sick, I don't mean like a medical diagnosis. I'm talking about the soul level, the disconnection. I'm talking about being cut off from the truth, from your own discernment, that inner peace, from actual meaning, from God, from keeping your own deep knowing. You can be spiritually sick and still look successful. You can be spiritually sick and still post quotes. You can be spiritually sick and still attend a church. And you can be spiritually sick and still say all the right words. Because spiritual sickness often looks like confusion. It looks like chronic emptiness. It looks like a lack of direction. It looks like knowing something is wrong and then overriding it again and again and again. It looks like being able to sit quietly with yourself. It looks like needing constant noise, validation, attention, romance, drama, substances, work, scrolling, or achievement, just to avoid what your spirit has really been trying to say. You know, in the Christian language, what sets us free is truth. Not performance, not image, not pretending, truth. And one of the deepest forms of suffering is when a person loses the ability to discern. When they keep calling the darkness light because the darkness is familiar. When they keep calling bondage loyalty. When they keep calling fear wisdom and they call self-assurance love. That is spiritual illness. Even in spirituality, many people are bypassing instead of healing. They say, I have prayed about it, but they have not faced it. They say, I'm manifesting better, but they are still repeating the same wound. They say God will handle it, but they refuse the truth God already showed them. They will say, I trust in my intuition, but they'll keep silencing when it costs them comfort. And I want to say something about science here too. Real healing does not need fake claims. We do not need to lie to make truth powerful. Yes, at the level of physics, the universe is more mysterious and unconnected, and the old mechanical models once suggested, but no honest scientist says that pain disappears when you said one information. The strongest evidence we have for healing comes from trauma research, attachment science, stress physiology, psychology, psychiatry, community support, safe relationships, behavioural change, and spiritual honesty. So no, I'm not going to tell you that one thought changes everything, but I will tell you this. Attention changes perception. Repetition changes wiring. Safety changes the body. And truth changes decisions. And decisions, they change lives. This is where science and spirit can meet without deception. And the real question is, where do we stay? Why do we stay in a relationship? Why do we stay in a friendship? Why do we stay in the family role? Why do we stay in the workplace that's draining our life? Why do we stay in the pattern that is hurting us? And the answer is not because we're stupid. It's not because we love pain. It's not because we're dramatic. We stay because what hurts us is often tied to what shapes us. We stay because familiarity is very powerful. And we stay because attachment systems get tangled in the little survival system. And we stay because the body would rather choose a familiar pain than an unfamiliar freedom. We also stay because betrayal from others slowly becomes betrayal of self. And we stay because family conditioning told us to endure what should have been confronted. We confuse being needed with being loved. We confuse being chosen with being safe. And we stay because we think if we can finally get peace from the place that wounded us, then the wound will close. But please hear me carefully. A system that trained your suffering will not become the source of your healing just because you tried harder. Some of you are waiting for closure from people who only know how to create confusion. Some of you are waiting for honesty from people committed to performance. And some of you are waiting for healthy love from people who are deeply unwell and uninterested in truth. Some of you are waiting for a family member to become what they never had the capacity to become. And some of you are waiting for your workplace to reward your soul instead of just your labor. And in the waiting, your life is passing. This is why discernment matters. This is why boundaries matter. And this is why grief matters, because healing is not just leaving the person. Healing is leaving the pattern. It's leaving the lie and the identity that was actually built around surviving what should never have become normal in the first place. So what does it actually ask of you? It asks for radical honesty. It will ask you to stop romanticizing what actually ruined you in the first place. It will ask you to admit when peace feels uncomfortable. And it asks you to tell the truth about your anxiety, about your sadness, about your numbness, your rage, your burnout, the panic, trauma responses, and your self-abandonment. It asks you to get support. It asks you to learn your body, to slow down enough to hear what your spirit has actually been saying under all that noise. And it asks you to stop calling your intuition crazy, when it was the only part of you telling the truth. You have to grieve. And many people don't want to grieve. They want clarity without the grief. They want peace without the loss. Transformation without the surrender or the acceptance and the healing that costs an old identity. You may have to stop being the strong one. You may have to stop being the fixer, the rescuer, the one available to people who only value your usefulness. You may have to disappoint some other people just to stop destroying yourself. And that is not selfish. That is alignment. That is truth. And that is integrity. So if this message is finding you at a time where you feel tired or confused, betrayed, overworked, maybe you feel heartbroken, numb, you feel burnt out or spiritually disconnected, hear me. You are not weak because that happened. You're not crazy because you felt deeply. You're not broken beyond repair. But you do need truth. You do need support, and you do need community. And you do need to stop normalizing the very thing that is making you sick. Let this be the day that you stop calling survival love. And let it be the day that you stop calling performance purpose. Let it be the day that you tell the truth about your life. And if you're ready to do that, if you're ready to heal and tell the truth, if you're ready to be in a space where people can actually finally name what they are going through without shame, come and join us. Come and join us at digitalwarriors.cx. Come into the free program, into the community, into a space where truth is actually allowed and where healing is supported, where your voice actually matters, and where you don't have to perform being okay to belong somewhere. You don't have to do this alone, and you don't have to keep pretending, all right? You don't have to keep repeating what wounded you. There's always another way. There is a wiser way, there is a truer way, and it starts when you finally tell the truth about what really is. Not love, not loyalty, not purpose, not strength. Trauma, performance disconnection. And now that you came to name it, you can change it. So I'll see you on the inside. Cheers.